Hello, everyone, and welcome to a different version of the art of pivoting your life. And my name is Michelle Carboni. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, intuitive coach, mindfulness teacher, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And on this show, I'm making a pivot with the show, taking it just on YouTube for the time being, and really just want to have people on who need some guidance because I love doing this work like so much, and helping people pivot their point of views and perspectives to create a happier life. So my beautiful first guest is, do we want to use your name?
Sure.
Okay, so my
Can.
first guest is Whitney. And just for just FYI, I have worked with Whitney some before, so I know a lot of her history. But she's going to tell a little bit about what she wants guidance on right now. And then we're going to jump in and you'll kind of see what it's like what a coaching session is like, basically. This is sort of a mini coaching session. So, Whitney, why don't you dive in?
Sure. Thanks, Michelle. So Michelle has been really helpful to me in my journey with an ex-partner who we had a therapist that she did not diagnose because she's not a doctor, so she couldn't diagnose him, but did say that he had some ASD, Asperger's, and he does exemplify all of the traits for it um, that she and I had gone over. But anyway, I broke up with him. He denied the treatment or any kind of help. And during the time that we dated, it was pretty toxic because I knew that there were some social and emotional deficits. And he pretty much pointed the finger back at me, blamed me, and then proceeded to have his sister write a smear campaign on me in my town and try to ruin me and my business, put it on social media. Anyway, so I was able to detach and get away from him. And then we live in a small town, and now he's been coming to the beach where I go, where I can walk from my house to the beach. And I saw him on Saturday, and it was pretty uncomfortable. So what I'm struggling with and I'm wanting help from Michelle from is like how to handle the situation with him. It's best just to walk away. But part of my issue is that I want him to apologize for what they've done. I want him to acknowledge um, the fact that they've run a smear campaign and hurt me deeply. And I just feel like it's not fair what I went through. And I know I need to move on, and I know I need to ignore him and stay away from him. But then he happens to come to the beach where I go regularly, probably every day, and walk the dog. And so it anyway, that's where I'm
Yep,
at with this.
that's where we're at.
Yeah. So that's a catch up.
So when you were at the beach, did you approach him or did he approach you?
I approached him. So this is my problem. I'm a
Hmm.
codependent, and I tend to want validation from others. I want everything to be happy. I want him to be nice. I want to be nice. And that's just not really what he said. He didn't want to talk to me, which then hurt my feelings. So then I pushed back.
Right. So obviously this is going to be around working with yourself, right?
Right.
And because you put the note in, when we arranged for the show, so I've been kind of thinking about you. Um, something that I'm wondering how you see it happening. What would happen if you don't get what you want? What happens if he doesn't admit the smear campaign, which I think you had sent me some screenshots because his sister never explicitly named you. She just was
Right.
kind of like vague posting. Um,
Well, she
so
did only in private text with other with the people that she reached out to. So
yeah.
anyway, but
So what happens if you don't get that? What happens if you don't get what you want?
Well, and that's okay that I don't get what I want. The problem with me is that I'm seeking this validation from somebody who is not willing to give it to me and who's only insulting and hurting me.
Yeah.
That's, that's where it's on me to learn how to be okay with the fact that they are just, you know, that that's what they did and that they're never going to feel bad for it and they're not going to give me any validation and not going to give
Mm-hmm.
me what I want.
Yeah.
So if I don't get what I want, um, I get upset.
Yeah. As we
And I,
tend to do as humans.
right, right. So I try to force it, Michelle. That's
Yeah.
like try to force an outcome,
Right.
um, which is part of codependency. It's not because
Sure.
I'm like some horrible person.
Well, and you know what's happening is like your nervous system is getting triggered, right? So,
Right.
we can't really escape what's programmed in our nervous system. But what we can do is work through understanding what's happening so that we can see it easier.
Hmm.
So understanding, okay, this is my nervous system. This is just my nervous system. This is just because what it's doing, it's triggering things from even your childhood. And there's a book called CPTSD From Surviving to Thriving. And in that book, he talks about these like, it's basically a flashback. It's not a flashback. You're not going back to a memory, but your nervous system is going back to a dysregulated state that you were in at a different time. Does that make sense?
Yes. And I
And
think that, go ahead. Sorry.
and so that's what's happening is in part is that when you see him, you're getting physically and as far as the physical reaction in your body, the nervous system reaction, and your emotions are getting sent back to these times when, obviously dealing with codependency too, but when you were, you're getting triggered to these emotional
Mhm.
moments, if that makes sense.
I think, yeah, I think it's goes back to my childhood. Like you said, like my parents were, they got divorced when I was 4. And so there was not the validation and affirmation. And there was probably, I don't think they rejected me, but they fought a lot. And
Yeah.
so,
Well, and even if they didn't reject you, there can be abandonment feelings there. Even if you're not abandoned, you can still feel abandoned. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm,
Like not having your dad around as much or your mom around as much or whatever it was, right? Like your whole world is shaken up. And when you're only 4, you don't really even understand relationships and the complications. And when we're that age, our egos are developing, our personalities are developing, our view of the world is developing. We're only learning when we're that age. We don't understand anything.
mm-hmm,
And so when you understand like all this stuff happened when you were learning how things worked, how to cope. And our little 4-year-old minds can come up with very interesting ways to cope.
mm-hmm.
So, that's part of it too. And part of it is ego. And I think we've talked about ego before. I talk a lot about it now because I'm doing ego work myself. We all struggle with this. So like everything I'm telling you I've struggled with these things too. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with feeling this way. There's nothing wrong with acting this way. It's just our choice of how we want to live. So understanding that you can get to a place where when you see him, you can choose to go, oh, wait, my nervous system's getting triggered. It's better for me right now in this moment to not talk to him.
Right. And
Right.
that's the bridge that I'm trying to get to. And it's funny because I talked to a friend last night and she was like, just ignore him. And I was like,
Mhm.
no, I want him to know that he shouldn't come to the beach where I am or this or that. And I want to
You know
control
what?
that emotional
It,
stuff.
and it's, in a way, like spiritually, this is the universe is like giving you these opportunities to act differently.
Hmm.
Does that make sense? So it's
Yeah.
like
And
the
I failed.
universe, you didn't fail. You're
Well,
learning.
no.
You're learning. You're 4. You're 4 years old. You're learning.
Hmm.
So you have to give yourself grace. You have to give yourself love, and you can go, okay, what can I learn from this? And what do I choose? What am I choosing in advance right now? What am I going to choose to do differently next time? Because you will see him again. Unless you decide to move to another state or another town or whatever, you will see
Hmm.
him, right? Like, didn't he live across the street from one of your friends for a
Yes,
while,
yes.
right? So, like, he's,
It's a
he
small
is,
town. I'm going to see him again. And
yeah, unless you decide to change your life and, to move somewhere, which you shouldn't have to do that, right? Like,
yeah.
you like where you live, obviously. And so choosing to go, okay, the next, I'm going to learn from this and make it a learning opportunity, make it an opportunity to give yourself grace and give yourself compassion and go, okay, this is what, now I know exactly what's happening. When I see him, my ego comes in as like, you need to get him to admit he was wrong because I am right and he's wrong and he wronged me, blah, 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 right? Like our ego is just like, just
Hmm.
chattering away. And that's what it does. And so we need to go, okay, no, this is just my ego talking to me. This is just my nervous system getting triggered. And the next time this happens, I am choosing to not acknowledge his existence. He doesn't exist to me anymore. He's a stranger. I'm choosing to make him a stranger. I'm choosing to make myself feel better. I'm choosing the better route for me. Does that make sense?
Right.
Right?
I was walking back and I could not believe that he was right there. It shocked me. And I stood there and I was like, what am I going to do? And then, of course, I proceeded with my natural instinct. So it's really that gap in between, like when I look at him and I'm like, what am I going to, what do I
Right.
say? What do I do? And then just figuring out how to like ignore him or
Right.
just walk the other direction. And
Right.
that's really hard for me to do because I knew I should have just walked the other direction, but I have like, I want him to know that, like I still at this point, if I see him again, I want him to know, like, look, there was nothing wrong with, you being a different breed. That's what his best friend, his sister's best friend, the girl he grew up
Yeah,
with.
but you need to let go of all that.
Yeah, I
You,
know, but it's
you,
hard because that
I
well,
know
what
it
I
is hard,
what
right?
the wound is that's being triggered is that he's blaming me and telling me that I'm a bad person. That's where
So, you know he's wrong, right?
I
Yeah.
know, but like,
And what do we, okay, think about all the people that we don't personally know in the world that say stuff and we're like, "Oh my gosh, that's so wrong." And what do we do with it? We don't take it in. We let it go. We move on.
I have a hard time with that. That's
I know.
where, you
That
know,
that's because there's these neural pathways, there's these habits of thought. You can think of them as like highways of thought. And those highways of thought are really old. They've been there a long time and they get activated. And that's the go-to. So what we have to realize is that we're tearing down a highway, and this is why we need to give ourselves grace and we need to give ourselves compassion. And if we quote unquote mess up, that it's okay. But we need to focus on choosing to be different and choosing to let that go. So,
right.
like, when I see him and I'm like, ugh, train myself, even write it down, figure out what works for you, right? Like, here's my plan for when I see him again, because you know it will happen.
Hmm.
My plan when I see him is I'm ignoring him. I'm giving myself a hug. I'm going to put my headphones on and blast music. You know what I mean? Like, choose the things that you want to happen when you see him so that you're not pursuing this situation that's just going to make you feel like crap.
Yeah, I
Because he's
know.
never going to admit anything that you want him to. He's just not, he's not. He is incapable of doing that. Can you understand? Like he's not capable of
Of
doing what you
looking at
want.
myself. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he's unaware, and it's not that he's a bad person because of it, as we know. He's just in a different place and he will not do it. It's, you would have to, even if you had a gun to his head, he probably wouldn't do it.
The only other like thing that I want him to understand, which is not reasonable and valid, I get, is just like he's like, you're not a nice person. And the thing is I'm not always nice. When somebody ignores me, when somebody's passive aggressive, when
Sure.
somebody writes a smear campaign about me, no, I'm
Yeah.
not going to be nice about
Right.
that.
Yeah,
I'm
of
a
course you're
good
not.
person. I do a lot of good and I do care a lot about people, or else I wouldn't have even tried to work with him. But
Yeah.
no, I'm not always easy when, ASD is not something, or Asperger, whatever, is not something that's always easy to deal with. And I have a hormone disorder and I don't always react perfectly. And I
Yeah.
didn't, but like,
And
so
you know
wanting
what?
him
That's
to acknowledge
okay.
his part, wanting him
He
to acknowledge his part is just not going to happen, which is, and wanting him to be like, yeah, you're right. I, wasn't always perfect. And I know you're a good person. I mean, the fact that he can't, accepting that he's never going to be able to do that is hard for me to accept. I'm like,
it is, right? It is hard.
you know,
So that's why you need to give yourself grace. You need to
because
give
I would
yourself
say to him, I would
compassion.
say, look, I know that you didn't intend to hurt me by, you know, I mean, you probably did intend to hurt me with a smear campaign, but all the neglect and all the emotional, like ignoring me and all that stuff, and saying, that he's never going to accept or acknowledge his part. If he could just say sorry for my part and I say sorry, then I could walk. I feel like I could walk easier, but maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what your ego's telling you,
Yeah.
right? And so what you might even do, I mean, there's a lot of things you can do, right? And I don't know if we've talked about this before. So there's something that we can do called the chair exercise.
Mhm. I think
And so what you would do is have two chairs, you sit in one, and then pretend he's sitting in the other one. And then you're going to have a conversation and you're going to have the conversation, right? So you are going to switch back and forth between chairs. So you're going to start as Whitney and you're going to be like, you mother effer, I hate you, blah, 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 just whatever you want to say, right?
right.
Get out as much stuff as you want. And then you're going to be him and you're going to respond. And maybe at first you respond how you think he'll actually respond. Maybe at first you respond with, I don't know what you're talking about. You're the one who's crazy. Blah, 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 blah. All right, whatever. And then you're going to go back to being you. And then you're going to respond to that and like go back and forth. Eventually, you want to get to the point where you can be him as the him you want him to be and
Yeah.
say the things that you want him to say to you. And what's interesting is kind of energetically, or it's kind of somewhat in the subconscious, but you can create a situation where you've gotten all of that out, you've had the conversation, you're saying this stuff out loud, so it's more than just circling this conversation in your head. It's different because in a lot of ways our mind doesn't really know the difference between what's real and what's fantasy, and that's part of our problem. I mean, I know for me, I have conversations with people in my head constantly. And until I actually have the conversation, it's going to keep going. And sometimes I have that conversation with myself, but out loud. And that helps just get it out so that I don't have to actually, in reality, have the conversation because it's not necessary. Just like this conversation's not necessary. Not really. But you have this part of you that is desperate to have this conversation. It's desperate to get that validation. So you're
Yeah.
creating a situation where you're making it yourself. Does that kind of make sense?
Right. And
So
you put
like,
it in your head and then
yeah,
just
and
puts it
just
in the
that back
chair
and
across.
forth and going through it. And then at the end, getting to that place where, you're at peace. What needs to be said to find peace?
Probably just, I'm sorry for my part. But then, I think that if I said I'm sorry and he said he's sorry, then it would just circle back into the same thing
We don't
anyway.
know, but it's worth a try, right?
Yeah.
It's worth
Yeah.
it's worth going through the process to just the back and forth. This is something that I learned when I was in one of my coaching trainings. It's just this back and forth, have the conversation. And then eventually morph that into the conversation that you want to have in the way that you want it to go. Because then
Right.
we're kind of tricking our ego and our
Right.
mind into thinking it happened.
And then maybe next time when I see him, I wouldn't be so tempted to even want to talk to him because I'd
Yeah.
feel like I had that. I just
And
don't understand why, this is a ongoing theme with me is external validation.
yeah,
And,
a lot
you
of
know,
people, I've dealt with that. A lot of people need the outside validation.
and I used to not be like this, but I think when I started this business, I got where I didn't want anybody to dislike me, because I felt like it would affect my business. So really it was self-centered and self-seeking to, but it's a form of selfishness to want everybody to like us or to not. I used to not care if there was drama, but like he would always say, "Why do you care what my sister thinks?" And it always upset me because I'd say, "I don't want to date somebody whose sister doesn't like me," because she was like the protector of him. And so,
Yeah. I mean, it's
I don't.
normal to want people to like you. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. And we live in a society that, values likes and right and comments and
Right.
oh, nobody watched my video and you know what I mean? Like we live in it. It's everywhere. We can't escape it unless we were to get off every social media, never watch TV, you know what I mean? Like we'd have to become hermits to not have that
Right.
around us, right? So like just understanding like, okay, that's just the ego and treating our ego. One of my teachers was, I was just like, I'm struggling with this because I'm very condescending to my ego. And I was like, and I don't, you don't want to be condescending to it. You don't necessarily want to be friends with it, but you want to treat it like it's your child and treat it with unconditional love and just go, okay, I see you. And that's fine. You're allowed to want that. You're allowed to want this validation. That's fine. And then just give it the love because really, what's the validation for? It's to feel loved when you come
Right.
down to it, right? So figuring out how can I love myself? What can I give myself right now to show myself that I love myself? What can I do when I wake up in the morning? What can I do? Maybe I'm listing what am I grateful for? I'm grateful I woke up today. I'm grateful I have a shower to shower in. I'm grateful because you have a dog, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm grateful for my dog. I'm grateful I live near the beach and I go to the beach every day, right?
Mhm.
And it takes time. So this is where patience, grace, compassion is very, very important. When we're on this healing journey, it's not easy. And there's going to be
Right.
times when you hate everyone, including the universe, God, spirit, whatever you call it. Like, you hate the world at times, and that's okay too. Like making yourself, getting to a place where you understand there is nothing wrong.
Right. And so I
Because,
guess that's where sorry, go
no, you're
ahead.
good.
Well,
Because we're human, right?
yeah. And so I guess it's like, I know that everybody's not going to like me,
Yeah.
and so now I'm learning to accept that more and accept when people don't
Yeah.
like me
Like,
or
I'm
don't
not
want to
everyone's
use.
cup of tea, right? Like,
Right.
like not everyone likes coffee. Not everyone likes tea, and that's okay. I'm not everyone's cup of tea. But the people who I am the cup of tea for, hey, they love me. And you know what? It doesn't even matter because I love myself. I love my tea.
Right. I
And just
just
reminding yourself.
It's just so weird because when I was younger, I kind of thrived more on like I didn't care if everybody liked me, and it was almost like I would control them by not liking them first or not caring what like
Hmm.
um I mean, in high school or, there was just people that I just didn't like that person and they're just not cool enough or they're just this or that. And then as I've gotten older and then as I quit drinking and like just really looked at myself more, I started like wanting to be this really, wanting to always be kind and always be nice and try to have everybody like me and people please and realize that like if I could just get everybody to like me, then I would kind of be in control. And then
Yeah.
as long
But
as
you're
they like
not,
me, I was, yeah.
right? We're never in
Yeah.
control. We don't control anything.
Right.
What is the one thing we're under control of?
Ourselves.
Well, what's the one thing about ourselves we can control? And you may not know,
I don't
but
know.
it's our thoughts.
Thoughts. Yeah.
With
It's
that is
hard.
the only thing that we can choose. And our thoughts create our emotions and our feelings, which create our actions.
So then I think what I'm working on too is like reframing it,
Yeah.
so where it's like with him at the beach, like, I haven't dated since I haven't seen him since January. And so like, if I hang on to that, and I've been out of town for a month. So if I hang on to that connection with him, then that's not going to leave room energetically for like
And
more
then,
other people or dates or whatever it is.
yeah.
And so that's why I was like, gosh, why did the universe or God or whatever put him there that day? Like, I just got back in town, been gone for a month. I was
Yeah.
good. I really wasn't thinking about him at all, at
Yeah.
all.
They were just giving you the opportunity
Yeah.
to see
But
where you're at, right?
and not that I failed, but
You
yeah,
didn't fail.
I clearly was not where I like want to be for the next time.
Sure. But now you know where you need to, like now you know a direction, right? Now you
Yeah.
know, okay, I need what do I want to think? So even writing down, okay, when I see him, I want to think, oh, look, there's a stranger,
Well, I
you
just
know,
have this
or
one last like I'll be honest, like I'm thinking like the next time I see him, I have one last round of things that I want to get out at
no,
him.
you
And then
don't. Stop.
I know, but I do. And then
No,
after that, I can
Whitney,
ignore him.
Whitney, you don't need one more time. It's not going the way you want it to go. It's never going to go the way you want it to go, ever, ever, ever. Can you accept that?
Yeah, but I need him to know that his
No, you're
Asperger's
butting
is
it.
causing. I know.
He doesn't, it will not help you in any way, shape, or form for you to say what you want to say because
I know,
he is
but when I
not going to
saw him
take any of
when I
it
saw
in.
him last weekend, I was like, "Are you still in denial of your Asperger's?" And I was an asshole. I wasn't
Yeah,
nice,
yeah.
and
You have
I'm
anger at
okay with that,
him.
huh?
You have anger at him. You're
Yeah,
allowed to have anger. So,
exactly.
what you should maybe do is have that conversation, do the chair exercise, get out all the reasons why you're angry. Hey, you a-hole, you did rah, 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 rah. I'm mad at you because of this. You pissed me off because of that. La, la, la. Like, get it out.
Well, you lie because I think he knew he had. At this point, I think he actually knows he's got this and that it affects people, and that I think he's lied to me about it. I think
He
he did
may.
that
Who
smear
knows?
campaign. I mean, if he had just acted, if he had just taken responsibility for his social and
He
emotional issues that affected us,
he's not going to.
I know.
He's not.
But that's what I'm mad at him about, for
Okay, that's
lying.
okay. You're allowed to be mad about it. Just because you're mad at someone about something doesn't mean they need to know. That's our
Right.
ego, right? So just going, okay, this is just my ego step, because honestly, anything that's not peace, unconditional love, compassion is from the ego.
Yeah.
Everything.
To write that down, Michelle.
Well, and this is being recorded, so you can watch it again, right?
Okay.
So, like, what would be best for you and your healing journey is to work through your anger, get it out, and
Right.
regularly get it out. It doesn't just go away after one time. So maybe, so like one of my teachers, we worked on anger a lot. Punch a pillow, get in your car and scream, or if you're in a house alone, you can scream. It might scare your dog. Scream into the bed, throw a temper tantrum on the bed. Like, make sure you're safe physically when you're exerting yourself, right? The yoga pose, doing cat cow can be a way to get anger out because a lot of it is stored in our liver. It's stored like in the center of our body. Sometimes it could even be, like heart chakra, throat chakra. But feel into, where is this anger living, and let me release it. Let me get it out. Let me say the things that I need to say to no one. Maybe you make a video. Maybe you journal. Maybe you make a voice note. Maybe you just talk out loud and it's not recorded. Maybe you just, you do the chair exercise, right? Maybe you get a punching bag and you punch it out.
Well, it's not that bad anymore because I'm not around him, thank God.
Yeah, but it's still in
But
there. You
yeah,
see it,
it's
right?
still there. It's just
It's
like
still
pushed
there.
away.
You just been ignoring it because he hasn't triggered it in you. So this is where the universe does you the favor because everything is for us, right? So like, how is this for me? I'm
Right.
triggered because I'm ready to heal this. So
And
I'm
it's
going
it's
to punch it
actually
out.
we're about I know we're almost done, but I was gonna say this is like this whole thing has caused me I didn't know much about Asperger's or autism and stuff. And so like it's actually showing up in my other relationships because I can like tell more when people are more type on the spectrum or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, I think this person is autistic because they're so rule oriented or,
Yeah.
whatever. And so I'm trying to like let go of the whole spectrum thing. And it's like still popping up kind of
Well, I
around
mean, honestly, I think
relationships.
more than half the population's neurodivergent in some way.
I agree.
And
But
I honestly, I think it's part of
most are in
evolution. Like
denial.
I, like it's, I think it's going to keep happening. And also in some cases it's formed for other reasons, but like
And there's
trauma and things.
nothing wrong with that. And I
Exactly.
wanted
There's
to
nothing
help with
wrong. So
that, but
it's
he should
like
have just been honest.
this is about you not letting go of that need for outside validation.
Right. Right.
Right.
That's
And
exactly
so
what it's about. Yeah.
yeah. And so what you have to do is just recognize, okay, this is just this part of me is needing this outside validation. And maybe you take that part of yourself and put her in a chair and you
Well, and
talk to
even
that part
like
of yourself.
I've kind of dated this other guy who I really thought was on the spectrum too. And that's what I'm saying. The anger kind of is morphing over into other, and then I ended up like talking to him a little bit about it and he was not wanting, he said he's severe ADHD, which obviously correlates with autism. So maybe the anger is still there because it's kind of lapsing over into other relationships, which is, I don't know how to.
Well, yeah, so that's the thing. Like when we're a lot of times when we're avoiding something, we attract it
Hmm.
because we're thinking about it. Kind of like one time when you told me you were worried, you kept thinking about you were going to run into a sister and then you did.
Yes.
Right. And so it's like we create that with our thoughts. And so that it all comes
Mhm.
back to our thoughts. But it also is about, our emotions get trapped in our bodies and we're carrying them around with us until we decide to let them go.
Right.
So, one good resource for like some somatic type work, well, it's fascia release, but it's called Human Garage.
Hmm.
They offer all their stuff for free. You can get on their website. They have a YouTube, they have an Instagram, like follow them on the Facebook, all the things. But they have these different programs, a 1 day reset, and then they have a 3 day and a 28 day. And if you can make yourself be disciplined enough, because I know I have problems with that myself, to do it every day and to start releasing the things from your body, eventually you'll probably still get triggered, but you'll handle it so much better. It's kind of like if you had a rock that you're carrying around and the anger is the rock and right now it's 50 pounds and you're carrying that around. So when it gets triggered, it's like, whoa, it just knocks you down. But later, as you've released the anger, now the anger is just a pebble. So when it gets triggered, it's like, oh, okay, no, it's there, but I can carry that. It's just a pebble. Does that make sense?
Hmm. Hmm.
So, like, learning how to release that, let it go, and then choosing your thoughts. And this is something that takes time. So, like you have to give yourself grace, please. Give yourself patience, give yourself compassion, because as you're learning, things are going to come, the universe is going to do you the favor of triggering you. Okay. So, like, you have to understand, I'm going to get triggered. It's going to happen. It's happening for me. It's happening to give me practice. right?
Mhm.
So like things may come up and it may be totally unrelated. It may be a work thing, it may be like somebody at
Mhm.
the store. It doesn't matter. You may get triggered and so you just have to understand like, okay, I need to what how am I going to handle this? What am I going to do? Plan it out in advance. Make yourself a note, then keep it in your pocket, right? Like you can because when we get in that state where we're triggered, it's like we're hit by that truck and we're hit by that big fucking 50-pound boulder
Mhm.
and we can't we don't have all of our faculties to tell us, oh wait, okay, I need to do this, right? Oh, I should do that. But if we are planning it out and we think about this, we think about, okay, when I see him, my thought is going to be, I'm going to stay right where I'm at. I am not in need of his validation. He's never going to give it to me. I validate myself.
Mhm.
And getting to a place where you understand, oh, this is just my ego talking to me. It's like, in the movie Inside Out, all those little emotions are really parts of the ego. So it's like you've let anger, the with his big fiery head, take over and go, oh, I'm going to show him. I'm going to get him to tell me, that I was right and he was wrong. But we don't really need that. What we need to do is make that anger smaller and make that voice smaller because we've let it go. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Because you can do this. I know you
I
can.
know. Well, I can walk away. I can that I can do if I just have this desire to say one more thing. I don't know.
Yeah. Don't say it to the chair.
Okay.
And if you have to do the chair exercise every day for a month before it's out, that's okay. Like if you have, you know what I mean? If you have to do maybe you do it for a week and then you're like, okay, no, I feel okay now. And then maybe you'll run into him and then maybe like, okay, well, no, I still really wanted to say it and that's okay. But I recognized, okay, this is my ego. This is my nervous system getting triggered. This is what happens as a human. I'm okay. I'm safe. I no longer need his validation. I'm validating myself. I know that I know what really happened, and that's all the peace I need, or whatever it is you need to tell yourself, right?
Yeah.
Think about what do I need to tell myself to not walk towards him?
I
What
just
needs
don't.
to happen in my head for me to not, for me to choose to walk away? So, like, I choose to walk away because I'm choosing my peace. He is never giving me peace ever. He's not going to. He can't. He's incapable.
Yeah.
And I'm choosing to walk away because I'm choosing myself. I'm choosing my own peace.
And he probably, I think he like gets off on it when I
He may,
talk to him,
right?
and
Like, oh, he may, maybe he thinks it's funny. We don't know. So
well, it
why are
doesn't
you
matter.
don't let him live rent free in your head anymore.
Well, he wasn't, and then I just was totally not
Well, he
expecting
was
him.
still there, you know,
Yeah, in the
because you
back,
haven't
but
released the anger. See, the anger is holding on to him.
it's a lot better than it was, though. I can tell you
Yeah, you're
that.
doing great, right?
It's
Like,
gone. I
acknowledge
mean,
how great you're doing.
yeah, no, I it's mostly gone, but it just like I just wish we could be cordial, but it's not going to happen. I
It's
mean,
not. You don't need him in your life. He's a
no.
stranger. See him as a stranger because he is. You don't really know him.
But it did help me to see him because he's so weird and he's so socially and emotionally inept, and it was like it did kind of make me realize like God, what a weirdo. I mean, and not that it's bad. I mean, everybody's different and
He's
everybody's
just
weird.
not right. He's not my cup of tea.
No, I mean, he was cute and that was the attraction, but
But
I
he's not really your cup of tea. He's
no,
not
I'm
a
not
person you want to build a life with.
no, he can't even he doesn't want to have friends, he doesn't want anything. So,
Yeah, and you're a
yeah,
social butterfly.
yeah, and I'm not it just for him to call say I'm not a nice person because I got frustrated with him,
Hey,
like
you know
that
what? Okay, I wasn't a nice person in that moment. You're right.
right.
And you know what? I'm choosing to move
I think
forward.
that's what it is. I think that's the story that I need to tell myself is, you know what? I'm not always a nice person.
Yeah,
And if
well,
I
nobody's
accept
always
that,
nice. We're
no.
allowed to get pissed off. We're
Well,
allowed to,
Asperger people don't have a lot of emotion sometimes. Like he didn't ever get upset or angry unless
well,
he got pushed.
most people on the spectrum repress that. They don't let, and it overwhelms them, so they shut it down and they
They
disassociate.
shut down. Yeah, 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 yeah.
And
That's what
so
they do.
you feel your feelings, and that's good. It's good to feel your
Yeah.
feelings, Whitney.
But I
It's
think
good to
I have to
process them.
validate myself on the
Yeah,
fact that I am not always a nice person.
yeah,
I can be a total bitch, and that's
yeah.
okay. And when someone disrespects me, and when they ignore
And you
me and
defend
mistreat me,
yourself, right?
yeah,
You write
I stand up for
injustices
myself.
that you see.
Right,
You
right,
want to fight for the little person. And that's
right.
okay, right?
And
Like
that's
that's
because I've
not bad.
advocated. Even my doctor was like, "You've always advocated for yourself because you know I have PMDD and stuff." And so it's like it's good to advocate for yourself. It's good to stand up for injustices, like
It
you said.
is. Anger
You know,
can be good. We just don't want to hold on to it and live in it. We want to
right?
release it. We want to process it. We want to feel it. We want to acknowledge it. Okay, this is why I'm angry. I see it. And then we want to let it go. We don't want to live there. So
Yeah.
just do the chair exercise with you can do it with anything, parts of yourself, you can do it with other people, do it with your parents, like don't overwhelm yourself like doing every person in the same day. But like okay, who do I need to express some things now that really doesn't benefit me to
Hmm.
actually in reality express to that person, like the situation with him. But let me do the chair exercise with this and get that out of my body.
Right. And play it out so that
Yeah, play
maybe
it out.
that memory will be or idea I won't have to have it with him.
Yeah. And then the next time you see him, you can be like, if there's still anger there, go, okay, instead of talking to reality him, I'm going to talk to chair him.
Yeah, I
Right?
know. Because
Okay, I
you're
need to
right.
do
I'll
the chair
talk to you
exercise.
soon.
But
Okay, I
write it
will.
down. Write down your plan for when you see him because you know what's going to happen. Plan it out. When I see him, I walk away. When I see him, I choose me. When I see him, I choose peace. When I see him, I choose to see my ego for what it is and what it's telling me, and I choose to walk away.
Yeah.
And using the
Okay.
word choice is very helpful.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to do it.
I love
All
you.
right.
I
Thank
know
you,
you can
Michelle.
do
Love you
it.
too. You're the best. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll
Yep.
talk later. Appreciate it.
All right.
And thanks everyone for tuning in. Our show went a little long today, but I don't care because I love Whitney and this was a lot of fun. And I know she's going to do great. And if anyone wants to be on the show, zenmymichelle.com is where you can go. And under, I think it's in the media, you'll find a link where you can book on my website to be on the show. And thanks everybody for tuning in.